Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm going to be doing a review. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today is Empress of the World by Sarah Ryan. I read this book at the very end of February and really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to share a bit more of my thoughts about the book, especially because I have not heard a ton about this book, which is a little bit crazy to me considering how much I'm always looking for more LGBTQIA+ books, because this was a really great one that I had not really heard much about. So this book was originally published in 2001, but this edition that I have is a newer one. It has an introduction by David Levithan, and in the back there are 3 comics about the 3 female characters in this book, which is really great. If you have read this book and you haven't seen the comics, I highly encourage trying to find them because I think that they were a really great addition to the characters. But let's talk about the book itself. So Empress of the World follows our lead character Nicola, and it is over the summer and she's going to this summer institute for gifted youth, and she's kind of thrown in with a bunch of new people that she meets. There are a couple of guys that she meets a girl named Katrina, and most importantly she meets a girl named Battle Hall Davies. And through the course of this summer, her and Battle fall in love and they have a romance, and there is a lot more to it than that, but that is the main point of this book. I don't know if you can see my tabs. There are many. Good sign. Very good sign for a book. The thing that was the absolute strongest about this book was definitely the beginning, or even the first half. That all was so strong, and while I was reading it, I just kept thinking to myself, this book is going to be so important to me. It was just a story that I felt was really resonating with me, and that it was going to matter a lot when I was reading it. Unfortunately, then the book lost me a bit in the middle, and in the middle I was like, if this book doesn't pull itself together, then I was completely wrong, and that made me really sad because I had such high hopes at the beginning. But luckily, the ending came around and I think it wrapped up really nicely. I just think that there's this spot in the middle where it kind of dives and it didn't go in a direction I wanted it to go at all, and it kind of frustrated me. But it pulled it back around at the end enough that I really appreciated it, and I thought it gave just enough closure to all the characters that I felt mostly okay with it, like I could have done with a sequel. But I felt mostly okay with how all the characters were wrapped up. This book does have a sequel that follows the love interest Battle, but based on the reviews I read of it, I'm not really interested in picking that book up because it doesn't mention the characters in this book as much. So I'm not as interested in that one because what I loved in this was Battle's relationship with the other characters and Nicola's relationship with Battle. So kind of not interested in reading that second book. The characters in this book were an interesting bunch. The best were definitely, obviously, Nicola and Battle. Those were the 2 that had the most development and the 2 that had the most distinct traits that I really enjoyed. I think that they each had a very distinct voice and personality, and I really felt like I knew and understood the characters by the end of the book. Their other friend Isaac was also really great. I liked how he developed even though he wasn't as big a role. When he showed up, I really appreciated it, and I kept worrying that Sarah Ryan was going to do something with him that I didn't want her to do, and she never ever went there, and that made me really happy. But the other character I want to mention is Katrina. I felt that their friend Katrina was sometimes a bit over the top. She wears these really insane outfits that sometimes I was kind of like, this is actually embarrassing to read about, the descriptions of these outfits. And sometimes that came through in her personality as well. I don't know, at some moments she just almost felt like a caricature rather than a character, and sometimes she felt like more of a placeholder to pad out Nicola and Battle's relationship, like they needed another person there to sometimes have other scenes with. So sometimes she felt kind of irrelevant, and that bothered me because I think she was an interesting character. So that was one of my other big problems, was that I didn't really like how Katrina was written. Okay. But now we have to talk about the best thing ever. The best, absolute, most wonderful part of this book ever is the actual discussion of bisexuality. God bless this book. This was more than just like a queer YA book that I'd read that's like a coming out narrative. This was an exploration of sexualities, and that was so big for me because this wasn't a coming out story, which is really what it was building up to be, and instead of being a coming out story, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I might be bisexual, what does that mean? And there is a scene in here there's a character that keeps insisting on calling them lesbians, and Nick consistently insists on being called bisexual, and she explains the importance of the fact that she is called bisexual and what that label means to her, and that was such a valuable, important thing to read. I had never read that before in a YA book. I know that there are some versions of that out there, but this was just so special. I was reading it and going, I can't believe that this is happening on a page right now, and that I hadn't heard about this book in all of my looking for bisexual books, that more people didn't talk about this book. And because of that discussion, the thing that I wanted more at the end of the book was that I wanted more about Nick. I wanted to hear more, I wanted to learn more, because she wound up being such a wonderful character to me, and someone I really saw as a character who grew so much, so I really wanted more from her. Because one of my absolute favorite parts about this book is that Nicola, some of her points of view stuff are written as field notes, because she wants to be an anthropologist. So instead of taking like a journal, she writes field notes and kind of addresses everything really scientifically, and I thought that she brought such an interesting and funny voice, and she just became such a wonderful character to me, and someone I really, really loved. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts about Empress of the World. I think that it was a beautiful book. I think it was a very important book, and if you were looking for bisexual books, please go look at this one. I can't believe more people haven't recommended it to me. I thought it was really, really well done. I loved that this wasn't a coming out story, it was an exploration, because the coming out bit was not that big a deal. It was like nothing. It was just like, oh, so this might be true. Let's talk more about what that means for me. And there should be a lot more books out there like this. Overall, because of the slump in the middle and the way I didn't like where it was going, it kind of disconnected me a bit. So overall, I had to give this book a 4 out of 5 stars, but it was a high 4. I was considering a 4.5. I went back and forth because this was such a strong book and such an important one. Okay guys, there you go. That is my spoiler-free review of Empress of the World by Sarah Ryan. This was a great book, and I hope that if you have not read it, I have convinced you to read it, because it's fantastic. If you guys have any suggestions of books with bisexual lead characters, please leave them for me below. I know that there aren't a ton. I'm trying to get more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!